administration is profoundly evil in ways that are difficult for Americans to comprehend. Now, the problem is, he's back.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that even if the American people get their act together on him, and they're starting to realize that. I mean, there was a great article, I hate to say great article. We have reached a stage of illegality, immorality, and depravity in a federal administration that no one could have ever.
When someone carefully enumerates all of your biggest shortcomings in front of Donald Trump on television, a complete collapse ensues, and Trump's response was complete mayhem. Before we continue, let's explain why these facts hurt more than any insult could. George Conway revealed everything with terrifying poise, including casinos and airlines that had closed. If you enjoy this content, over 98% of you watch the videos without registering, so it has a significant impact on us even if it's just a small one. It's free of charge. Has the subscribe button been clicked? Fantastic. Much thanks. Let's return to the video. The manner George Conway broadcast his comments live on television, like ducks at a shooting range, was more offensive to Trump than the content of his statements. Without raising his voice, Conway enumerated Trump's most heinous and widely publicized financial gaffes, ranging from failing casinos to the Trump Institute, which purportedly failed due to legal action for engaging in unethical business practices. We're talking about it all. It's a cult.
It's a cult. I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. And everyone has, it consists of basically two groups of people, mostly. So, I mean, that's basically what just happened here with Nikki Haley. And the person who has really lost it the most is Donald Trump. Some people who have basically completely lost it. You know, the people we see in the House of Representatives. And then there are people who are basically afraid to call out.
The most agonizing part was that he didn't shout, abuse, or make crass jokes. Instead, he carefully combined one mistake after another so that it was hard to argue back and let the facts do all the damage. Although Trump's supporters tend to blame any bad news on liberal prejudice, this defense was irrelevant in this case since Trump couldn't just shout lies and continue. Public court documents, bankruptcy filings, and business endeavors that failed in front of the entire nation all made this plain. In this particular instance, Conway's remarks lacked any political connotations and were only focused on Trump's business experience. By this point, his entire reputation was built on, rather than on debates over policies or mudslinging. It was Conway who was taking down the house of cards. A failed attempt at a time was how Trump had grown his firm. Millions of dollars were spent on Trump vodka, which was consumed more quickly than a Friday happy hour by Trump Airlines, which is currently a member of the USFL Football League.
I think, generally speaking, not in every single case, less government is better than more, because you don't want too powerful a government, because you may not like the next government. A disease of liberalism in the 60s and 70s when I came of political age, and now it's horrible metastasis in the right that would say that, oh, well, let's see, in order to figure out whether this particular gun regulation is constitutional under the Second Amendment, we have to look very specifically at the statutes that were passed in Maryland in 1645.
There was no way to hide behind irate slogans or rebuttals when the facts were presented so clearly. It sounded like an accountant giving out the invoices for every poor choice Trump has ever made. Naturally, the contrast between Conway's poker face and Trump's typical bluster was almost comical. By the time the section ended, Trump was reportedly, already agitated, pacing the room and shouting loudly enough for staff members to hear. When a student was flipping their desk and throwing pencils across the room, Trump did so metaphorically, as if he were a teacher patiently explaining why a student had failed the test. As a result, George Conway's case as a losing attorney was strengthened by a series of late-night, all-caps breakdown tweets. George should be banned from the internet. For years, Trump was enraged and envious of me, rather than disagreeing with Conway's views. Among other conspiracy-level charges, Trump chose to focus on personal insults. He called Conway a cold-hearted loser. Husband Trump witnessed it, and it was almost too on brand for Conway to deny anything he said about his business failures. The man whose political identity was based on his success as a businessman was dunked. on in gym class and was left yelling obscenities like a middle schooler, however, was not another one of Conway's strategies. The subtle facts were first, and were crafted in a way that was intended to hit Trump where it hurt the most: the gold-plated towers. Trump's image as an unstoppable corporate tycoon is bolstered by the reality TV drama and the constant publicity. However, Conway chose to ignore the image and concentrate on Trump's cold, brutal failures, which caught him completely off guard. With each angry tweet and personal attack, Trump showed that he couldn't stand Conway's remarks, which had nothing to do with emotions, but rather with figuring out how to effectively expose Trump's shortcomings. Despite the fact that Trump's tweets were a spectacle in and of themselves, this episode shocked his campaign crew. The campaign crew, accustomed to managing the chaos that surrounded Trump, found themselves at a loss, grappling with how to counter Conway's incisive critiques. As the tension mounted, it became evident that this battle of wills was not merely a clash of personalities, but a pivotal moment that could define.
He's the crazy one, and everybody is getting more crazy than he is. And as Nikki Haley pointed out when she was telling the truth for a couple of weeks in the spring, I mean, say it's 74, 75 degrees, he's saying it's freezing. He's, the lies about the election. I mean, he's mentally unstable and he's getting worse. And we can see it every day in the courthouse. We can see it when he's standing out there complaining about the temperature, when thermometers in the courtroom.
But talk about it shortly. Trump essentially stomped around like a tornado of people. Knowing that Trump had failed to refute any of his allegations, George Conway went to bed carelessly in the immediate aftermath. It was a public relations and personal catastrophe for Trump, and everyone could see the full extent of the harm because Conway's takedown made headlines. The problem they were unable to resolve was Trump's ability to keep his team focused. Let's start by discussing how this entire scenario completely upended Trump's inner circle. Caution. Chaos was just beginning when George Conway's TV takedown turned Trump into a human caps lock button. His late-night Twitter antics weren't the only thing that caused chaos. Advisors seemed to be in a panic, trying to fix the mess that Trump had made for himself rather than concentrating on the actual voters. His campaign staff was left reeling by Trump's relentless attacks on Conway on social media. You would think that a group so accustomed to Trump's outbursts would have a strategy by now, but their re-election strategy was already in a state of chaos. Their attempts to regain control were further undermined by infighting and a lack of clear direction, leaving them scrambling to salvage any semblance of a coherent message. As the election drew nearer, the stakes grew higher, but so did the uncertainty surrounding their campaign's viability.
I believe that even if things turn around publicly, I don't think they're going to turn around publicly fast enough to prevent some of the bad things that I think are going to happen. And the administration did in a whole bunch of agencies was fire en masse the probationary employees. And I don't remember exactly how long you're a probationary employee when you're hired, but it has to be individualized. They did not do that because they just fired everybody en masse. They pretend that, oh yes, we made a determination. That's bullshit.
Where allegedly angered, perplexed, and, let's be honest, unaware of the actual meaning of their non-disclosure agreements. Advisors did more than just try to divert his attention. They had to keep an eye on him as if he would forget Twitter ever existed. The most desperate tactic, it seems, was having a senior assistant print out encouraging tweets from Trump's followers and give them to him. Yes, actual copies, the adult equivalent of jingling keys to divert a child. Divert him from this Conway spiral by keeping him busy with the glittering, delightful things that other people were saying. Of course, this didn't work because Trump simply continued, and Conway's obsession caused him to distort the message that Trump's strategists were attempting to convey to the public rather than projecting an image of himself as a self-assured leader who was prepared for re-election. Trump yelled almost non-stop for days at a single attorney who had tactfully called out his shortcomings on television. The attorney's remarks had struck a nerve, prompting Trump to lash out in frustration, believing that every slight against him was an affront to his authority. In his mind, the only acceptable narrative was one that painted him as invincible. and any dissent only fueled his determination to assert his dominance, both within his campaign and in the public eye.
Donald Trump, it's just ingrained in him. He wants retribution against his enemies. And by picking two people who are completely loyal to him, all this stuff, it's just these are the two perfect people to run an FBI that's controlled by a president who's a criminal. Spread his disinformation about January 6th and about Spygate even back in 2016. That's what Bongino got on the radar screen for, and COVID, which Bongino got thrown off of YouTube for permanently.